is illegal to do that, but there are people working to stop these conflicts. But also, if anyone is actually caught killing a lion in Africa, they usually end up with a criminal conviction, the loss of their ranch, and a lengthy time in prison. But if you ever do go and see lions in Africa, just remember that as long as you treat them with respect and do not provoke them and are never out alone, you're less likely to be killed. Now, there are actually 3 kinds of lions. I'm going to show you the differences between them now. Right. As you can see here is a comparison. There's the African lion, but there's also the Asiatic lion and the Barbary lion. Now, the Asiatic lion is very different than a lion. I mean, for one thing, they have a distinctive fold of skin down their underbelly, but also the males have smaller and darker manes, and you can actually see their ears. But with the Barbary lion, as you can see, the Barbary lion is a lot bigger and has a much fuller and darker mane. Now, the Asiatic and the Barbary lions are known as the lions of ancient Greece and the Bible. In fact, they're actually believed to be the lions that Androcles and Daniel faced. That's the ancient Greeks based the Nemean lion that Hercules fought. And also the same lions that the Romans set upon the Christians and the gladiators in the Colosseum in ancient Rome. But of course, the Barbary lion around the 1930s or 50s was hunted to extinction in much of its range, but the Barbary lion does still exist. I mean, there are a few of them in captivity, and there are people talking about bringing back the Barbary lion, but the problems with that are, firstly, a lot of the Barbary lions today are victims of inbreeding, which has caused a lot of genetic dysfunctions, but also a lot of their genes have been mixed with Asiatic lions, which has caused another few problems. But I mean, if we could bring the Barbary lion back from extinction in the wild, that could be a real success, but as a debate for another day. And the Asiatic lion, though, is probably the most threatened member of the lion group, and of course they once stretched from North India through the Middle East and into Europe as far as Greece, but up until the 1950s they were exterminated in all of their range. But right now the last stronghold for the Asiatic lion is the Reuploaded Forest National Park in northwest India. But there is hope, because although Asiatic lion populations in the wild are fewer than probably 630 odd animals, there is hope with European breeding programs which have been spending decades building up breeding populations in captivity. I mean, I did some research into that, but unfortunately a few of the Asiatic lions that were breeding were also victims of inbreeding, but fortunately we have learned from that. And also, the Asiatic lions were recently reintroduced to Iran and Iraq, which was part of their historic range, so it is possible that the Asiatic lion will be coming back from the brink of extinction. But with the Barbary lion, I mean, it could be possible to bring these ones back, but as I said, that's a debate for another day. Now, here is their range. In fact, this right here is the historical and current range of the sub-Saharan African lion species. But around here was the range of the Barbary lions. As you can see, they lived throughout North Africa, around the Middle East, into Greece, and possibly even lived in Italy, France and Spain. Of course, here was the Asiatic lions range, but right now their last stronghold is here in northwest India. But they have recently been reintroduced to Iran and Iraq, so as I said, it's possible that we could bring those two lions back from extinction, or the brink of extinction. Now, the next animal I'm going to show you is the largest land animal and also one of the most beloved of all creatures. It is the African elephant. African elephants are the largest land animals, and when I say largest, I mean a fully grown bull can be well over 3 meters high at the shoulder, can weigh about 6 tons, has tusks that can be well over 3 meters, and they could smash a tree into the pulp, and they could quite possibly snap a tree like snapping a matchstick. There are two distinctive kinds of elephants in Africa. There's the Savannah elephants that you see across Africa, but there's also forest elephants, but I'll get to them later. African elephants are some of the most intelligent animals on the planet, and it's mainly with the emotional side of their brains, and their memory as well. In fact, in times of drought, the leaders of the herds, the matriarchs, do rely on memory to lead their families to special water holes that have saved them in previous years. But also, elephants, with the emotional side of their brains, in fact, to them, family is everything, and they can even mourn the dead elephants that they have known. And, of course, as you can see here, they do use their tusks to fight, but also, especially with bull elephants, when they fight, they're a lot like medieval knights jousting, and of course, every battle that is either risking injury or death, and the winner is crowned King Bull. And of course, with elephants and their social structure, large herds are mainly made up of females and they're young. The males tend to leave at adolescence, and quite often they head out on their own. And of course, male elephants can either be solitary or form loose bachelor herds where young males will hang around with an older and more experienced male to learn a few tricks from him and just hang around with him. And of course, the bonds between elephants and their herd is absolutely astonishing, and especially with mothers and their calves. But while elephants are some of the most beloved of all animals, they are also potentially quite dangerous. Especially if it's females with calves and they're being protective, they can be very, very aggressive. But with the males, it's a completely different story. In fact, there's actually a time in the elephant's year where the males will go into season. It's called must, and basically when bull elephants are in must, they produce more than 10 times the amount of testosterone, and they've just got one thing on their mind, which is to find a girlfriend, and they can be very, very grumpy, unpredictable and aggressive. And when I say that elephants can be dangerous, they can outrun you, they can crush a car like a tin can, and they can probably kill a fully grown man with a single swipe of their trunk. But also, I've even heard of elephants flipping jeeps while protecting their calves. But unfortunately, elephants in Africa are in terrible trouble, and there are many reasons. The first two are habitat loss, where a lot of their habitat is destroyed for plantations, farms or towns. and that leads to human-wildlife conflict, with elephants having to find the food by going to farms to do what's called crop raiding, and that results in humans trying to drive them away, but then it ends up with the elephants retaliating by attacking people, and of course it just keeps getting worse and worse. But the worst thing that is driving African elephants to extinction is this: poaching for their tusks. Now, elephant tusks are formed of a substance called ivory, and ivory is a banned substance in much of the world, but there are many countries like China, Vietnam, Taiwan, North Korea and the Middle East that want elephant ivory. And it's used to make Arabian dagger hilts, to make jewellery, necklaces, ornaments, and even in China they are in heavy demand for elephant ivory chopsticks, and they're becoming and it's because of China that these elephants are being driven to extinction. In fact, every day as many as 7 to 8 elephants are slaughtered for their tusks. And every day, in fact every year, as many as 10,000 elephants will be killed with use of guns, poison or snares. Of course, elephant meat is also seen as a delicacy, but it's mainly the tusks that are what are sought after. And it's not just bad news for the elephants if they're wiped out, it's also bad news for the habitat they live in. I mean, elephants are habitat formers, like in the jungles of Africa with forest elephants, and they take out the smallest saplings and leave big open spaces for bigger trees to grow. And both savanna and forest elephants form the paths that other animals and human beings walk on. But also, like in the dry season, elephants can use their trunks and their tusks to dig into the ground to find water, which they can drink, and also what other animals can drink. But also, elephant dung quite often carries seeds of fruits and plants that they eat, because I know to many people elephant dung looks gross, but it actually isn't, because the plant vegetation passes through the stomach virtually unchanged. Well, much of the plant vegetation that passes through the stomach is virtually unchanged. They can't digest plant wall cellulose. I mean, cows can do it, elephants can't, and that's quite often what they have to feed for 16 hours a day. And if elephants are wiped out, then it will be bad news for the habitat and the animals that they share it with. Now, as a little comparison to the elephants I mentioned, here is an African savanna elephant. As you can see, it's big, it's bulky, it has enormous ears and very curved tusks. Here is an African forest elephant. Forest elephants are their own separate species. They're smaller in stature with straighter tusks. But here is the Asian elephant, and Asian elephants, as you can see, have smaller ears, 2 distinctive lumps on their heads, and of course slightly straighter tusks. So 3 different species of elephants that come in all different shapes and sizes. And here is much of the elephant's range. And now, I'm going to show you all. Next animal is the fastest land mammal, and it's basically if an animal was a sports car. It is the cheetah. Cheetahs are found on the savannas of sub-Saharan Africa, but also found in the Kalahari deserts. And they are small for a big